And viewers, French President Emmanuel Macron is set to begin a 3-day state visit to China, focusing on trade and diplomatic relations. Macron aims to strengthen economic ties, advocating for fair and reciprocal market access, while also seeking to attract more Chinese investment and boost French exports. Key sectors for cooperation include energy, food, and aviation. In addition to trade talks, Macron will press Chinese President Xi Jinping to influence Russia toward a ceasefire in Ukraine. Paris expects China to refrain from providing Russia with support to continue the war. During the visit, Macron will also participate in a France-Chinese business forum and visit key cultural sites. And I now want to welcome Professor Rohan Gunaratna, International Affairs expert, joining us live from Singapore into the discussion here.
It's very good to see you.
All right. Thank you, Professor Gunaratna, for joining us. Now, even as we discuss this, Macron has in fact arrived in China, and the visuals on our screens show how he is said to be welcomed by the Chinese authorities there. But let's talk about this. Macron comes to China right after meeting with Zelensky, and he is expected to push China to side for peace, but we all know how China has been supplying to Russia in its war efforts. What impact is this visit really going to have on the peace negotiations?
China has provided very significant capabilities to Russia, particularly what you call the dual user technologies that has in fact given an added capability to Russia to mount operations against Ukraine. So Macron's appeal to the Chinese is to persuade Russia to embrace peace, because right now the demands that Putin is making is such that neither the Europeans, even the American mediators, are puzzled by it. So what is important is that both these leaders build goodwill so that China will be able to move Russia towards a position where both these parties, that is the Europeans and the Russians, with the mediation of the United States, will resolve this conflict without further loss of lives. Otherwise, this conflict will protract, and there will be fatalities, casualties, and asset losses on both sides.
And what should we expect from Xi Jinping? Is he expected to concede to Macron's efforts?
Xi Jinping is a very pragmatic leader. He will firstly work with France with regard to strengthening the ties with France, especially on matters of trade, because there's a very significant movement on the part of the French entrepreneurs, the business community, to strengthen their trade agreements and French exports and facilitate access for French exports. So I think that what is going to happen is that in the fields of energy, food industry, and aviation sector, there will be very significant investment efforts. And of course, France and China will work together. Of course, there is some concern about these developments on the part of the Americans and other Europeans. But France is determined to build this close cooperation with the Chinese. There's also a trade deficit with China when it comes to the 27-nation bloc, over 300 billion euros last year. So China alone represents 46% of France's total trade deficit. So I believe that there will be also movement in this direction. It's a good visit because multipolarity is something that is happening whether we like it or not. And of course, now we are seeing France working not only with the Americans and fellow Europeans, UK, but also with China.
Now, Now, the message that Macron is expected to deliver is not an easy one, both as far as war is concerned, as far as trade is concerned. You know, there's a lot of pressure on trade security and diplomatic ties. Uh, do stress to us about some of the key talking points in their bilateral meetings and any likely outcome.
One is that Macron will advocate for an agenda of cooperation in economic and trade matters aimed at achieving a balance that ensures sustainable, solid growth that benefits everyone. So I think that Macron is also understands President Xi Jinping's pragmatic thinking, and he will want to work with France. This will also set a trend for other European countries. So I think France, as a very important player in continental Europe, will pave the way for working with China. Of course, the Russians either will become more isolated, or of course, Russia will be compelled in many ways to resolve the the dispute with Ukraine. So I think that overall, this is a very positive visit. France and China celebrated their very long cooperation, a diplomatic anniversary last year. So I think that this visit is seen as advancing French and Chinese cooperation, but it is something that should be encouraged, and that's something that is positive for global stability, because there's more relationship between these countries, then the chance of going to war, chance of disputes, conflicts will recede.
All right, Mr. Gunratna, Professor, I also want to draw your attention to the fact how Macron's visit is coming after Ursula von der Leyen's in July, and after that visit she said that ties between China and European Union are at an inflection point. So the timing of Macron's visit is crucial here. How do you assess this?
Whether we like it or not, China is emerging as an economic superpower, and China cannot be isolated. And the Europeans understand it, and the Europeans want to work with the Chinese. Europeans have very serious issues with the Russians, but eventually what is important is for global stability, global peace and harmony, there should be such ties. I think at the end of the day, leaders are less ideological. They are more keen to look at how governments can work together so that we will have a peaceful world, a stable world, because Europe has suffered a lot because of the war with Russia. Although the Russians are incessantly attacking Ukraine and Ukrainians are attacking Russia, the bigger problem is that the Europeans, especially NATO, build up their capabilities on Russia's border on the European side. So I think there must be a great understanding between these countries. And I think more there is a trade and more there is investment, the probability for conflict will diminish.
All right. Well, thank you for your comments there and helping us with that perspective. But do stay on. There's some